Hello and welcome back to the Movie Marathon Podcast, a place where we watch movies and then we talk about them. My name is Gabriel. I'm your host for today's episode. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Dixon. And today we're doing something a little different on the pod. We're covering our first independent film, Moments of Youth. And if you haven't heard of Moments of Youth, it takes place the night before graduation in the small town of Winthrop Creek. High school seniors compete in a high-stakes scavenger hunt with a massive prize. And the hunt includes challenges like capturing the principal's tie, sneaking onto a professional baseball field, and pulling a hole-in-one with pool cue precision. The film is also written and directed by Gregory Pellerito. And more importantly, I'm bearing the lead here. We have Gregory here joining us.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much for having me. Excited to talk with you and talk all about the film and movies in general.
Well, before we get into everything, we have a little tradition we do on the pod. We talk about our first experiences watching film of the day. So I would be remiss if we didn't give your film the same treatment. And Dixon, I'm going to kick it off to you. What was your first experience watching Moments of Youth?
My first experience watching this movie was very recently. I watched it 2 times, went through it, had a great experience. Definitely brought me back to some early memories for sure, especially with the scavenger hunt. I remember doing those myself in high school. So definitely brought up a lot of fond moments of that time in my life. So yeah, I had a great time watching this and getting into it and very excited to talk to you further about it, Greg.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Glad you enjoyed it. Glad it brought you back to, the fun high school days or college days or middle school day, whichever days they were.
I distinctly remember one of the items in the scavenger hunt that I did was I had to find a dress to wear, and there's a photo of me somewhere floating out there on the internet of me in like one of my friend's prom dresses. So yeah, that definitely was nice to go down memory lane that way.
Awesome. Did that win it for you?
It might have actually. I think that was a high point item on the scavenger hunt list.
Awesome.
I feel like we've done scavenger hunts together, Dixon. I was thinking about it too when I was watching the film.
That might have been one of the ones that we did. Yeah.
There's one where you were like in the pizza costume too. There's like ridiculous ones where you always had to dress up as something. But I think we did a couple of scavenger hunts in high school. Gregor, we're old high school friends, so this did make me feel like
awesome.
It made me feel very much like he's talking about back to that. And it also, talking about first experience, I enjoyed watching the film as well, and it made it feel like American Pie kind of vibes to me, films that we don't really see anymore. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
Seniors, it's the night you've all been waiting for. The scavenger hunt send-off 4 long years ago.
We grew up with we had, some of the coolest movies in the 90s that were teen films. And like in the 80s with the John Hughes films, but American Pies. I mean, my friends and I, we would watch American Pie on like a Friday night. We'd go out and then we'd come home and watch it again for probably a year straight, and then did it when the second one came out. And then we were out of college when American Reunion came out, and that was, we absolutely loved that one too. And American Wedding, but yeah, American Pie, the first one when it came out, we literally I would say for a year straight, we watched it like every single
classic.
Yeah.
I just rewatched those recently, actually, in COVID, and I forgot how much I love them.
Yeah.
They're so much fun.
Yeah, we had American Pie, we had Can't Hardly Wait, we had 10 Things I Hate About You, we had. Just so many of them, and they would just keep coming out, and they were just so great. And then and then if you go back, I mean, I think the thing for me is like, no matter how many times you watch Ferris Bueller's Day Off, if it comes on TV, you still watch it regardless. Because you can't shut it off. It's just so good and it's so fun to watch. And I just always loved those kinds of films. And I've always loved movies that take place in one day. I think that's a really fun way to tell a story from start to finish.
Yeah,
and so I guess with Moments of Youth, a lot of the sort of inspiration in terms of making this film and writing the story from the get-go was really the movies we talked about and the movies that I love. I wanted to make a film in line with what I love to watch and
Mm.
the style that I love personally. Yeah, I mean, I love all kinds of movies, but I just felt like this would be a really fun movie. Um, like you said, uh, it's kind of harkening back to those kinds of movies. And on top of it, which I'm sure we'll get into, it speaks to something much deeper than than just a really fun night, which was something that was really important to me to also tell. On top of this really fun and adventurous time that they're having.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I want to get into kind of touch on a lot of things you mentioned there, and we kind of grazed part of it through. But what really made? Why did you want to make this movie at this point in your life? Was it something you always had? Since we're talking about American Pie, but yeah, where does it all come from?
Yeah, in terms of why I wanted to make it, I felt as though I wanted to tell a fun and funny story first and foremost. I think it's something that people really enjoy watching. I also felt like this group of friends and this particular story is something you can really root for, no
Mhm.
matter if you're around high school age right now or if you're closer to our age or our parents' age. I felt as though it's kind of a universal story. And the first draft and first several drafts of the screenplay were all about a scavenger hunt. They didn't touch on the really deeper issue that we get into. But the more and more I started writing and rewriting and preparing to make the film, and the more and more I felt like I wanted to say something pretty profound. So that's where the kind of traumatic event that we touch upon comes from. And I felt like it hasn't really been explored in television or film much. And I thought that, right now, with how much these kinds of stories are in the news, I felt like it was important if I was going to tell a movie about high school today. I almost felt like a kind of like a responsibility to include it because of, how unfortunately, um, many of these kinds of stories have happened. So yeah, I would say it's kind of an amalgam of those. Is I wanted to make a movie in line with the movies we talked about, very much in that kind of vein, um, as well as I wanted to make people laugh, give them something, to have a good time watching. Also, these kids almost feel like underdogs, and they kind of come out of it. They kind of conquer at the end, and I think that's always a fun story to tell. And then the more serious and traumatic component to it all, I felt like it was important to include and really kind of build the story around this sort of event that took place 2 years before.
Yeah, for the audience members, I hope you can watch the movie. But we're talking about gun violence here, is what we're alluding to, and I didn't see it going that way, and I'm glad you did weave it in because I felt like it did give the story a little more weight and meaning. And I really like what you just said there about, in some ways, you can't tell the story, a lot of American high school stories without it being a part of it, even in some minor way, or it's just even a scare.
Right.
That's the sad truth. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was really smart to take it in that direction, really.
Thank you. And I'm glad to hear that uh you appreciated the way we went about it because my intention was not necessarily to make any kind of like major political statement or anything like
Hmm.
that. Really, more than anything, what I wanted to do was I wanted to show the effects of what this has on people years later because I don't think we really hear about that. We hear about the stories in the news and we hear about when they happen, but you guys, I'm sure you guys remember Columbine, and I do. I remember that day really well, and when I was doing the research for the film, I watched a lot of the interviews with the kids now who
Hmm.
were at the school when it happened, and every one of them, they're still every single day they obviously they still think about it. So I thought that as opposed to showing it really graphic and vivid, I thought, well, let me tell it from the point of view of a group of friends who lost a really close friend in the tragedy, how it's affected them, and we see threads of it, most notably with Carson. He's the one who's most visibly, affected, like most visibly, showing the effects of it. Not that he's the most visibly affected by it, but he's, he has PTSD all the way through, and we kind of hint at it, right? But I think I always appreciate when people said they don't see it coming, and I really haven't encountered many people who figured it out, and I think everybody knows something is going on and all that kind of stuff, but until that main scene where we really talk about it in the van, is when I feel as though just about everybody, it kind of hit them at that point. And I just hope, I just hope it brings as much awareness as possible to it, and really, I just, like I said, I watch a lot of interviews with the kids from Columbine, like now, and they're all in their 30s or 40s now, and how they, hearing them talk about it, and it just it was kind of the main source of research that I did, was interviews like that, not just Columbine, but several of the other ones that have happened. And it helped me kind of really try to, in the best way I could, understand what it's like for them every day. And I kind of, did my best to show what these particular characters would experience realistically. And they all kind of handle it in a whole different way. Lily, for example, she handled it through music, and they all have their own way that they've kind of navigated it.
How was it kind of trying to balance the comedy and, like you said before, it didn't start with the gun violence aspect, but how did once you this kind of came to fruition, how was it kind of doing that balancing act?
Yeah. I think that comedy and, in this way, and also not only comedy, but I would say also the adventure component of the film, in terms of racing against the clock to try to find all these items on the hunt, all that kind of drives the story, right? And what I did was a couple different things. Like I think stylistically, not just with the story, but also the way in which we shot everything that was either scavenger hunt related or comedic. It was always kind of feeling like it's a mile a minute and nonstop. And then when the real dramatic events or dramatic conversations happen, we're very still, right? So the tone visually kind of shifts. But then, a lot is done through the music. So the intensity and the nonstop action kind of feel and kind of the lightheartedness in terms of the comedy music, that helps kind of propel, the tone of those scenes. And then of course, like when we talk about something very serious, it's a whole different kind of style in terms of music. So visually, music, that was the way to kind of balance it. But what I told everyone at the beginning, the whole cast, and Corey Green, our director of photography, he and I talked a lot about how we would shoot things, and that's kind of the template that we kind of struck from a visual standpoint. And also the way things are lit are very different when we're talking about things that are very heavy. But but the main thing that I told everyone was I kind of came up with this scale, which I was saying if Breakfast Club is at a 1 in terms of major like teenage angst, and American Pie is at a 10 in terms of just full on party, having fun, drinking, all the fun high school activities. I wanted to be right in the middle at a 5. That was kind of what my goal was. So every actor, when we were preparing, when I cast them, I had, very long, detailed meetings with them, and I had them watch a lot of different movies, very specific ones. A lot of the ones we talked about, then some that aren't super popular too. for example, a film called 10 Years I had everybody watch, which was fantastic. It's about a 10-year reunion, a high school reunion, and it was very much in the style and the tone that I was aiming for. So, which was helpful because a lot of the other films they had seen Perks of Being a Wallflower, they'd seen all the John Hughes stuff, and coming at it knowing that my intention was to be kind of like right smack in the middle. They knew that we were never going to go over the top humor for no reason, and they knew that we were never going to be super melodramatic just for just out of nowhere.
Right.
So we we made sure to keep it like right in the middle of the whole movie, and then obviously the really deep conversation that they have in the van. It was all leading to that in terms of the drama, right? But what we were able to do is, because there's a lot of different characters in the film, there was a lot of ways to bridge going from super funny or totally wild scavenger hunt related thing to a really serious moment. There was a way to kind of have a happy medium and a scene that would happen right in the middle that would kind of give it an even plane, right? So it wouldn't be like we were jumping from something super funny to something super serious.
Right.
All of those components are what I use to kind of construct going from the many different tenors that the film has. Although I think more than anything, the overriding sort of feel is kind of nostalgia and charm, right? So that's why the beach scene feels the way it does. Was really important for me to have that really, really nice, heartfelt kind of tone to it, where they're essentially it all hits them kind of at the same time. Where this is tomorrow's going to be totally different, because I think people have the propensity not to acknowledge that until it's like right in front of you. And I've told this story a couple of times, but I remember like the night before I graduated college, we had this enormous like gala almost, but everybody was acting exactly the same as it was any other night when we were out, but I just felt this like presence that nobody was speaking. It was like an unspoken layer that was there. And I just kept, but nobody said it, that like tomorrow, like we're not doing this again. And that's where the scene on the jet, when Darius tells them that, he's like, it just, nobody wanted to come out and say it, but it was clearly there. And then at the beach, that's when it finally hits them, and and I think that given everything that they've gone through, this particular class, I think it's something that's why I say I feel like they're kind of underdogs, right? And that you're rooting for them, and then they kind of run off into the sunset to close out the film.
It's funny that you mentioned that that last scene where it like kind of like finally hits them all together.
Yeah.
Me and Gabe, obviously, we went to high school together. We had like a quote unquote last hangout. And I think it was kind of like all right, before we all go off to college and have our different lives and do our own thing, let's like meet together. We probably did that about 5 or 6 times after that because we didn't want to actually move on.
You didn't want to actually go,
moment.
right?
Yeah. It was tough. So I definitely felt the weight of that because I've experienced that too. So
cool. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad it brought you back there.
Yeah.
I also thought about the last hangout, Dixon. That's funny.
So the official last hangout, what did you guys do? Like the 6th one, what did you guys actually do?
We were at Dixon's house, right? We lit up. Did we have a fire pit? Did you have a fire pit?
I think we had a fire
pit, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and we hung out in his backyard,
awesome.
like classic. Just hung around, talked, and
somebody
put on
Wonderwall by Oasis, and now every time we hear that song, it's like we're never going to see each other again. This is it.
Okay, so have you guys checked my social media at all? Because that's my all-time favorite band, and that's my all-time favorite song.
They're incredible.
That's so funny.
They're incredible. As much hate as that song gets, it's still an unbelievable song.
It shouldn't.
I agree.
Because it's it gets hate. That's why.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, but the album "What's the Story, Morning Glory" just passed Sgt. Pepper's. It's the all-time number
Did
one
it
selling
really?
album. Yeah, last week. Number one all-time selling non-live album or non greatest hits album in the UK.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yep.
More to the point of why it's such a good song and why they're such a good band.
Literally, it's I'm so I love that you guys just said that because I remember the day. I remember the day that the album came out. They became my favorite band. I had already loved them because definitely maybe came out, about a year before. When What's the Story, More in Glory came out, because you had Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, and Don't Look Back in Anger all on the same album, which is it's like,
unreal.
Yeah, it was my favorite band then, and it still are 30 years later. But yeah, that's what a awesome, what an awesome like way to remember your guys' last night that you played that song.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It was. We danced a little bit around the cast. So I want to talk a little bit about them. She's the biggest name, so we got to go through her first. Cheri Oteri, SNL legend.
Yeah.
Love seeing her in this. What was it like getting her cast in your film?
Yeah. So, first of all, she's always super busy, obviously, because she's fantastic. But she had done a film with two of our producers a couple months before, and they both had suggested her to me, and I, of course, as soon as they did, I said, of course, like I would love to have her. So, they reached out to her, sent her the script. She really enjoyed it. And she said, sure, I'll hop on a plane and come play Mrs. Pop. And we talked the day before. I was already in production with the film. So, I got the word officially, like maybe, we were in prep maybe 2 days before we started filming. And, she's like, I'm going to read the script. Is it's okay if I come up with some little, she's like, I want to just like throw little lines at the end. And I was like, of course. And me in general, like I welcome that so much because I feel as though, there's so many talented people that work on a set. Like, by all means, come with me, whatever ideas you have. And someone who is an absolute master at that, which she is. So then on the day of, we sat down, like even, and she's like, this first scene when I'm at the table at the house, when I'm talking to the girls, she goes, what if I throw at the end, the whole thing about Freddie? And then I say, oh, we laugh, I pee. And I was like, yeah, I love it. Go, let's do it. And she would have these little Captain Killjoy that she calls Brianna. She came up with that. But yeah, she was just an absolute joy. We talked, a couple times before she flew out. Then, we met the day before. And then, yeah, she was there for 1 day of filming. That was it, for as much as she filmed. Yeah. We, from, 8 o'clock in the morning all the way straight through, we just shot her scenes. Yeah, she was just so great. She just was awesome. And probably my all-time favorite SNL sketch is the Spartan Cheerleaders.
So good. So
classic.
good.
Yeah. So I talked to her about it, and the night before, which I didn't know, but her and Will Ferrell wrote created those characters and wrote all of those sketches, and I thought that was pretty awesome. So, yeah, I just absolutely, loved how funny all of those were. And she was just awesome on every level.
I also want to call out some of the other cast. John Farley is Principal Crenshaw. I loved him in this. He's been in so many comedy films that I've seen. I felt like he did a nice job too. We talk about this balance. I love the scene of him and Carson talking on the
bench at the carnival.
Bench. Yes, yeah. I love that scene. I thought it was great. So really liked his performance. And Gary Pastore, he was great as Coach Pop. So just another great character actor I really liked in there. So I really felt like it's really a cast of unknowns, the high school cast. So I felt like you kind of supported them really well with some of these adult actors.
That was kind of the intention, right? Was find really talented up and coming actors who haven't really been in much. And we shot so close to COVID that all of them were from the city. We're from Manhattan, so they auditioned in the city. And John and Cheri came from California, but everybody else was pretty local. But as far as John goes, Farley goes, on set with him, like he has so many of Chris's mannerisms and his jokes. He's just so naturally funny all the time. But he what I love about his performance is he was so funny and so goofy, but also just so lovable, right? You could tell the kids just loved him, and he's got just a great charm. And then that scene that you're talking about was really great between the two of them. I filming that scene was kind of the first scene, not only in the film that we slow things down and talk about something really. It was also the first time we shot anything kind of on that level. So it tonally happened to be very dark and cloudy that day, whereas the whole rest of the movie, if you notice, is really kind of bright.
Bright. I was going to say, yeah,
during the day. Yeah, but that day just and I was thinking, like, it was one of those kind of just happy accidents because it fits so well with what they're talking about. And I think that the amount of films that John's been in most of the Adam Sandler films in some capacity over the last really 2 decades. Gary has been in probably close to 100 movies and TV shows and
so many. I looked at his list. It's crazy.
Yeah. And his brother's famous too. His brother's Vinny Pastore, who played Big Pussy in The Sopranos.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
That's Gary. That's Gary's brother. So the two of them have had, those two brothers have had incredibly illustrious careers as John and Chris. Both of them, same as John and Gary. Both their brothers, are very successful actors like they are. So they both come from pretty famous families, and they were just. They were great as far as support systems on set and just their encouragement, like beforehand and during, just awesome guys all around. And then the two that I love talking about, Betsy, who plays Darcy, she the way that she
great
approached
performance.
the role, yeah, I just loved what she did and the stuff we came up with on set. There were so many things, like in the moment when she's got the scene when she pops into the closet when Carson's going through the tie, I was like, let's go with I've done more with less, when he's talking about his arms and she walks away.
I have a note literally about that line somewhere buried in here. I wrote it down. Yeah, I have it.
So as we were shooting, that was like the 4th or 5th take, and I came up with that on the spot, and I was like, that'll be really funny. And then she just walks off, and that's the one that I chose, obviously, because I thought it was the best option. We had so many different. The script didn't have that. It had some other funny lines, but I just loved the way she delivered that.
These arms are spaghetti noodles, and I've done more or less. Yeah, I have it.
Yeah. And Andrew, who plays Carson, came up with the spaghetti noodle line, and then when he said that, kind of said it in the moment, and then on the next take, I was like, "Hey, let's go with I've done more with less," and then just walk off. But yeah, the pole dancing scene, that's 100% all her. She did all that. And I loved, the way she did the bathtub scene. She was just so funny the way she commanded. And the other one who is a recognizable name, but she's in the movie not a ton, is Peyton Hughes, who plays Crystal. And I loved her performance, and her and both of them are they're just so awesome in general as people. And Peyton, the way she approached Crystal was just awesome too. Just so funny with the how she played the part. And so all of them. And then, as far as the younger actors, it was a very competitive process. We saw, I think Gemma was definitely the most competitive role. We saw, I want to say, close to 3,000 submissions for her.
Wow. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
and all across the country, some international even. I had known that I was looking for something very specific with her character, especially how she was going to kind of counterbalance Carson, right? And kind of the chemistry there was very important. So Olivia had this quality about her, which she felt sort of wise beyond her years, but also just very innocent at the same time. And I thought it was really fascinating, and the way in which she is Carson's support system. That really played very well. And you know all of the actors, we had a ton of, like I said, we had a ton of submissions. Um, Being that we shot so close to COVID, and you know a lot of the costs for the film were on the name talent, right? So
Mhm.
it was um, it was my intention probably to cast through auditions um, out of New York, and all of the younger actors are from the city or around the tri-state, our area, um, and they, well, several of them have since moved to L.A. and Atlanta, but when we filmed, they were all local, and uh, yeah, aside from Cheri and John, everybody was, from around here, which was great. So uh, we saw a ton of Carsons, we saw a ton of Lincolns. Joyce, we saw a whole bunch of, but Kristen actually auditioned for Brianna and Gemma, and I just watching her audition, I was like, she is so talented, but she's just neither of those roles. She's just way too confident, and at that point, Joyce, the character, I knew what I was looking for, but I just didn't really see it in the hundreds of submissions that there was a lot of really talented actresses, but there was something that I saw when Kristen read for those other two roles that then I said, I'd like to see her come back for Joyce. And as soon as she read, I was like, that is 100% her. That's exactly what I was looking for. And then Hector as the villain. I was looking for like the guy who like thinks he's so cool, but like everyone else thinks he's a total dork, except for like his couple friends that he has. And he did a great job with that. Yeah, so they all, I love Micah's performance, who plays Spencer. I thought he was just he was so funny with the way he went about it. And all of them just, every one of them just brought such a different dimension to the roles than what was, say, on the page.
Mhm.
And then they all elevated, and I would say John, Cheri, Gary, Peyton, Lauren Francesco, who plays Tatum. Also, we didn't talk about her, but Lauren's actually a really, really successful influencer. So this was like kind of she's an actress, but she's also so this was like kind of second nature for her. And she came up with a lot of funny stuff that we kind of came up with on set. That
Felt
wasn't
very natural.
Yeah, yeah. Every time you see her, she's in a different outfit. We kind of came up with that like like while we were filming, just because we thought it'd be hilarious to just like have her in a different location every time she pops up on screen, and she's like right in the middle of doing whatever. Yeah, and they all, Lauren really elevated that character. John just elevated Principal Crenshaw like crazy. Like the stuff that he came up with that was just so like quirky, and Gary with his accent, and Cheri, the two of them together elevated, and Crystal really elevated Peyton really elevated the role of Crystal. So yeah.
You forgot to mention that one very specific cameo of Baxter Ford as the baseball announcer. Standout performance of the whole movie.
Yeah.
You played Division I baseball?
I did.
was that sort of a kind of like nod to yourself as like a former
So,
baseball player?
so I was actually supposed to play the guy at the carnival who like messes with the girls trying to get on the Ferris wheel.
Mhm.
But that was the first day of filming and the very first thing we shot, and I was like, I probably should not play that. And then we had actually a named actor who was going to play Baxter Ford, and he had a scheduling conflict, and I was like, I mean, this is like, talk about second nature for me. I'm just gonna like, if I'm gonna play anything, I might as well play the role of something that I could talk in my sleep, right? So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I knew I was gonna play some part, but like, the more and more we got into it, I was like, that would be kind of the perfect role for me to do.
Yeah, I think it just blends in perfectly with everything. The scavenger hunt is
Yep.
massive. The task list is huge.
Yep.
Do you have a longer version of that scavenger hunt list where like what were the things you like cut out that maybe you were a little overly ambitious about?
Yes, we do. There was plenty of stuff that we didn't get to do, or that there was nothing that we didn't there was nothing that we didn't film for the scavenger hunt. Everything that was scavenger hunt related is in the movie, but the script had plenty of other ones. We just had to trim it down. There was we called it the fast food frenzy, where you had to go to Burger King and get a number 1, get a number 2 at McDonald's, a number 3 at Taco Bell, a number 4. The same person had to eat all of them in the same. My brother came up with that one.
That's actually great.
Yeah. So, if we do a sequel, I'll include like the ones we didn't do. We had that one. We had, oh God, what else was there? Oh, we had, this I knew was going to be almost impossible to film, but we had, win a street race, and I had this whole long sequence, written, where the shady ladies pull up to like a stoplight, and someone revs their engine, and they just race down the road, and they cut in and out of cars and over the yellow lines. And I was like, yeah, we, budgetary reasons and scheduling and safety, we're not going to be able to do that. But yeah, there was plenty. There was a lot of them. That's a great question. Nobody's asked me that yet, but there is a lot. Well, there was a lot more that we didn't get to do.
Very cool.
There was actually another iteration of the scene when the girls are at the house filming the romantic liaison, where the script originally had where there was a couple actually about to hook up, and they film them, and then the guy sees the drone and then chase the girls like down the street. So there were things like that we kind of reworked too. But the fast food frenzy would have been a funny one to like work in for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of the drone, the banner stealing scene.
Yeah.
How was that done?
Whew. Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah. That was by far our most challenging part to shoot. Okay. So first things first, John Farley's first day on set was that scene, the exterior of him showing up with the helmet and the scooter and everything. And we filmed that, actually, the exterior that was at my alma mater, which used to be called Trinity Catholic. It closed a couple of years before we filmed. It's now under a different name. But I wrote the drone chase inside the school, cognizant of the layout of my school.
That's funny.
However, they wouldn't let us film inside, so that, I'll get to that in a second. But the outside of that whole sequence with John, I had a 16-hour day scheduled, and I showed up and was told we had 4 hours at the school.
Oh
my God.
I had to kind of revamp what I was shooting, and I shot only John's stuff. Only the stuff that John did, we shot right then and there. Now, all of the shady ladies in the car was supposed to happen. We were supposed to shoot that on simultaneously as John's going around, and and he was supposed to see them and kind of come after them on his scooter. But we had to leave, and I filmed all of John's stuff. Hector climbing the ladder. By the way, he did all of that himself. He did about 7 or 8 times. He climbed all the way to the top on his own.
Wow.
Which I, of course, told him he didn't need to, but he wanted to. He wanted to make it feel as real as possible. It's also him getting tackled by Lincoln. We did that about 10 or 12 times. It was him getting tackled.
I'm sure he enjoyed climbing the ladder more than he got tackled.
yeah, exactly. So we shot all John's stuff. Then we went to a parking lot and filmed the girls in the Jeep reacting to everything that was happening outside of the school. And then that's how that's stitched together in the edit. So that was one day of filming. So that's 2 locations on one day. Then we had to shoot the interior side of everything. That was shot at a totally different school. When the drone's flying around and it knocks Hector down, that was all shot. And then when it flies past the security office and Debbie's sleeping, when it passes by her, that was shot, on the same day as Hector getting knocked down. But then we needed kind of the point of view of the drone flying around the school, essentially while it was holding the banner. So that was then shot at a third school, all around the school. Then, I got the idea to knock the banner down, how I was going to do it from like a visual and a special effects standpoint. So on another day, what I came up with was, I have a buddy who's a fireman, and we set up a ladder in the gym all the way high up, and he held a pole, and we drove the drone into the banner. And then on a green screen, we flew it into the banner. He was on a ladder again, holding it, and then as the drone hit it, he dropped it. And then we filmed plates behind, what are called plates, which are green screen fill-ins, right? We filmed that so that when it hits the banner and it falls down, you see the behind is the gym. So we married those shots together, and then when the drone hits it, it's falling down. So then we had to come up with the easiest way to make the banner, kind of attached to the drone to make it fly around. So we had a couple of the banners, and we cut them and taped them and really kind of taped them to the drone, and then flew it around. And then there's that really, one of my favorite shots is when it's the shot from the ground and it's flying overhead. I literally, I held the camera on that shot, and Imran, who's one of the camera operators and also edited the movie, he was operating the drone on that day. So I took the camera and I laid on the ground, and I literally just held it straight up, and it flew over us. So you see the banner like wrapping around. But all in all, and then, then the most challenging part was to make the drone plummet from the sky and crash. So we, outside of my house, because I knew we were going to need like a gazillion takes for this, we had somebody on a ladder all the way up, drop it, and we filmed it coming down. And then we had somebody throw the banner off the ladder and have it fall onto the ground. So then all of that cut together. Then John's reaction, which we filmed obviously on John's day, of the drone being broken and him, saying he was going to repair it back to its factory settings. So all in all, it was 7 days of filming and 5 different locations. Yeah.
Wow.
But we, we made it work.
That's crazy.
Definitely came together very well.
Thanks.
I want to talk about my favorite sequence in the movie, which is the Tim Burton riddle.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Love
sure.
that. I'm a Tim Burton fan. He was like one of my favorite directors growing up.
Yeah.
It seems like you are too, if you included that in the film. So,
All-time favorite. Yep.
yeah, and I love the Batman Returns part too. That was so good. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what was it kind of like to recreate like Scissorhands, Batman Returns, in like your own kind of fun way to do it in your own film?
Yeah. So he's my favorite director. Did you figure out the riddle as they were guessing?
I didn't. I wish I could say I did, but I was following along, like kind of when, like I was with them, if that makes
You
sense.
were piecing it together with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's something that's really fun about the movie. Going back to kind of like when you asked about the impetus of making the film, is I feel as though it's in a lot of ways is kind of an audience participation film, in that you're kind of playing along with these riddles and stuff. So I'm glad that you had fun being that you liked Tim Burton a lot. So that's great. Yeah. So obviously those were shot totally different days, and the jet was totally separate from the girls inside the car guessing. But you know, I had this idea that the score should almost feel like a trivia, like
I heard like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire kind of sound.
yeah,
there.
yeah, while also feeling like the clock is ticking. So the more and more like they start guessing, John Baxter, who did the score and did an amazing job, the more and more quicker that they start guessing, the more he ramps up the music. So I also, you know, I wanted the clues to be enough that people would kind of guess what the film was or try to start piecing together. But the play on words is that I said, you know, it says plays a part in a film as opposed to acts in the movie. So initially, when you hear plays a part, you automatically think it must be an actor, right? But we're actually playing a role, not as opposed to playing role. So Brianna's the one who figures that out, that it's a play on words. But you know, they start going on, which I think probably in this situation, your first thought would be to go on the internet, break up the clues and search it, and then go on IMDb and try to figure out who's what here, right? So they go down, you know, the rabbit hole, like literally with the rabbit hole guess, and then from an editing standpoint and a stylistic standpoint, I got this idea that I would do, you know, a whip pan transition. So as we ended in the car, we would whip across right into the jet and then back and forth. So it felt like as one team was solving one part of it, the other one had already just solved it, or they were finishing each other's sentences, right? So it felt like a continuous flow. And then, you know, I thought it would be awesome if like, okay, then they all figure it out at once, but there's like a silence, and then boom, they all just say it. It's Tim Burton, right? And then as far as the reenactment goes, that was the Edward Scissorhands was probably one of the hardest points that I laughed on set when I saw Andrew with the white on his face and his reactions and how serious Lincoln took the directing of the scene. You know, and it's funny because I love the dichotomy between the two teams, because the Shady Ladies feel like they're just like a well-oiled machine, right? And they're finishing each other's sentences. They get everything right. They're such a close-knit. Commonwealth Court feels like they were like the last four people picked, even though they're friends, and they just like kind of are thrown together. So seeing them trying to solve anything always felt so funny to me, like while we were filming it. And then I really kind of even expanded a ton of that in the editing suite, because I noticed when I saw it in front of me, I noticed the differences between like the two teams and how different they felt, which I think plays really well. And, you know, in that scene particularly, though he accidentally cuts her hair, you know, like, and then the Shady Ladies shoot this like festival worthy looking film, perfect choreography on the fight scene, you know, and Lily's performance is like really good as Catwoman.
Yeah, it is.
And Julia got the idea. Julia, who's also great. You know, Julia is so funny in the movie. She got the idea to do the Batman voice, which I didn't think when I wrote it, but she started doing it. And I said it was so funny. In the read through, she actually did it. And they just, they hit it out of the park in terms of like as a team, how perfect the movie was. So the difference between the two of them, just kind of night and day there. And then I talked to John Baxter again about the composition of those two scenes. And I was like, if you can make this sound anything like a Tim Burton film or like a Danny Elfman score, it would be so great. And he sent me that version of the Edward Scissorhands score, and I could not stop laughing when it was cut together.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did this awesome like superhero composition for the Batman part. Also, we shot the Batman scene anamorphic, which like a legit superhero movie, like a legit superhero movie. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to film those.
You mentioned the private jet a couple of times. Did you actually film on a real private jet?
Oh yeah, that's a real jet.
Nice.
Yeah, that took us a year and a half to book.
Wow.
And the first wave of production was fall of 2021. And several months before that, we were preparing, we were doing prep for the film. And we had a location to film, a hangar to film at. Problem was you could never really control when someone's going to take their jet out. So, and the airport is very far from where we are. So it was hard to like book it. We would have it and then it would fall through. So then all the way in the summer of 2022 was when we finally locked it down. Even then, the one we were supposed to use got taken out the day before. And
Wow.
thankfully that one came in that morning and we were able to use it.
Wow.
So yeah, that's all a real jet. Funny story for you guys is they told me that they wanted me to take the jet up as a co-pilot after we finished filming that day, and I was all thrilled to do it. I could not something at all I was expecting, but I was like, sure, thank you. So but we were running behind, so I didn't get to do it. But that would have been a pretty cool thing to say that I've done.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, well, you could come up and we'll turn it over to you. I was like, yeah, sure, I'm in. But yeah, unfortunately, we were running behind.
Next time.
A lot more we had to film. Yeah, next time.
So, since you both wrote and directed this movie,
Yeah.
which version or which sort of hat won a lot of the creative arguments when you were trying to figure out what to do in a certain scene?
Yeah, really good question. So I tend to write differently than a lot of writers do, and also differently than a lot of writer directors do. I tend to write exactly how I envision shooting the scene, and I kind of write that into the script. So I know how I want to shoot everything kind of well beforehand. But in terms of being on set, there's a lot that you're not privy to when you're writing the script that either isn't available, because when you're writing on the page, you can write whatever you want. But, given scheduling issues or budget issues or location issues, whatever it is, there's always things that you're limited to based on what the scene is. So I would say I always kept the integrity of what the screenplay was, but creatively, the direction probably always won out in terms of the way I would go about shooting the scene. So I changed up a lot of scenes, in the moment in terms of like what we were going to do. I always tried to get as close to the script as I could, in pretty much every situation. But when, the location that's booked is very different from what, say, the script calls for, I think one of the most important things or traits that a director can have is the ability to pivot in the moment, and I think something that I believe is a major strength of mine is that I don't ever panic in the moment if something doesn't happen. And that was something that, people brought to my attention, was that like, if like on the day when we had 4 hours of shoot versus 16, I was like, we'll figure it out. And we did. And also my thinking is always, this is the easy part. Making the film, we'll always find a way to figure it out. Getting the film off the ground, I think, is always the hardest part. Getting the financing, getting the movie made, for me is substantially, more difficult than being on set, because, any problem that arises while you're on set, I think it's a good problem to have because you're making the movie. So that's kind of the mindset that I take. And I think, to answer your question, Dixon, I would probably say that, knowing how I want to shoot a scene when I write it is incredibly beneficial for combating whatever the production calls for in terms of budget or schedule or location, because I know in my mind exactly how I want to do it, and I'll get that no matter what, because I that's the way I always envisioned it and the way in which I know that I want it to look. So I'll make a point to get that version.
Great.
Yeah.
I was also curious. The film has a very specific visual style in terms of lots of split screen, text on screen.
Yeah.
You mentioned whip pan, stuff like that. It feels very digital, the age of social media and YouTube. How much of a deliberate choice was that? And, why did you go that way?
Yeah. Great question. Yeah. I think number one is because I think that, where we are with technology for, say, just a standard cell phone is tremendously advanced, right? What people can do on YouTube and social media, as just, not a non-filmmaker, and what you can do as far as editing and everything technology wise is so advanced that I think we had to be way more advanced than that. And I think that the difference between Moments of Youth and all those movies that we talked about from the 90s and 80s is that social media didn't exist then, right? So not only does it exist now, but it's, I've said, as far as technology goes, the two biggest like events that we've been alive for, people our age, is when the internet came out and when social media exploded. Like they're both of those two milestones changed the entire landscape of everything. So with what you can do on social media as just a person who's, say, on Instagram or TikTok, as I said, it's pretty technologically advanced in terms of what you can do, and very cool what you can do. So I felt as though, technology had to really kind of push this movie forward. And also, we've seen scavenger hunts in movies before or TV shows, but what I was trying to do here was that, I was trying to bring it into the 21st century with it operating in real time, right? Every single thing that happens is updated through Tatum and through social media, and kind of an ongoing regular scoreboard, if you will, right? Which is something you couldn't have done in the early 90s or 80s. So that, I think, was really important to make it feel very digital. But also, I think the other reason for it is I wanted to do everything I possibly could to make it feel nonstop and like they're racing against the clock, because they are, right? They only have a couple hours to complete this. So the more you can do visually and stylistically that feels very fast, camera work that's really quick, a lot of moving the camera with the characters, so it feels like very fluid, and and even the colors. But then also again, I go back to the music. The music just springboards it so every scene so quick. That's hunt related. So I felt like it had to be very snappy in every kind of situation, and also on top of that, that would also sort of provide a really strong dichotomy of when we slowed things down for the emotional components, right? So, there's no social media during these emotional moments. There's no camera there's no camera movement. It's very locked down and very gritty, to make it feel super, real and emotional. So it gives that kind of, again, that balance that we spoke about earlier in terms of comedy versus emotional parts. In this case, it's kind of the action versus the slower parts. Split screens. I felt like this movie kind of screamed that when I was editing it. And I kind of always saw that when I was writing, and also when we were making the movie. I was like, because we are essentially, on top of it, we are basically telling two stories at the same time because we're following two teams.
Yeah.
And the more you can do to constantly be in motion, the better. And I think, what's available technologically now really, really helped bolster that. Sure.
You were talking about the scoreboard and how they could kind of keep up to date on that. I know I keep going back to when we did scavenger hunts, but it was pen and paper. You just had to mark it down.
Right.
Hope you got everything done before everybody else did, but you really had no idea, which was a little bit exciting, but it's also cool to kind of see where everybody is in the night at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. You almost think of it like a live, Twitch video game competition, right? Like how you have the constant scoreboard going. And then I think also having to take pictures of yourself doing things and then post them immediately, right? My scavenger hunt, like going back to what you said, I've said this many times. My team won, and there's a picture of us outside of the school, on the main road, the street sign, just in our underwear, and that's what won it for us in front of the street. And that was, now you couldn't do that with, I think probably you could have on a cell phone, but the requirements were to do it on a Polaroid. So we had to find someone to take a Polaroid. So all of our pictures were all Polaroids. I can't find that one anywhere, but I found a couple from that night. I actually did. So I will be releasing those at some point.
Somebody's hanging on to that picture. Somebody has it. They're holding on to it for safekeeping.
My friend, he posted it like several years ago, but it's not on social media anymore. So anyway, I felt like, posting the pictures in real time and going, like, I felt like that would be the most logical progression of what a scavenger hunt would be to do it kind of like now, right? Like everything's happening right now and you have to show it immediately. And then ultimately Tatum's able to update everybody.
Very cool. Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit, but these kind of, coming of age films, large ensemble, like the one night structure sort of films, we don't really see too many of these anymore. Do you have any ideas of like why that is, or maybe what can be done to have more of these movies get made in the future?
Booksmart came out.
I feel like it was a while ago now.
Yeah, was it a while ago now? Yeah, which was great. It was such a funny movie.
Film,
yeah, great film. And that's one night. But yeah, it hasn't. It's been a while, and I don't particularly know why it is that they're not being made. But maybe this will be the kind of awakening to bring it back. And I think You Can't Hardly Wait's one day, right? And it's going back to the 90s. Dope came out in kind of the early 2010s. That's not one day, but it was fantastic. Kings of Summer took place over the course of summer. That was also fantastic. Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my favorite films of the whole century. That takes place over the course of a long period of time. Yeah, I don't know why I think I love the fact that, the story takes place over one night. But I think, if this had taken place over the course of, say, a couple weeks for their senior year, it would have been a different film. But I think all of the ones that we just mentioned, like Dope and all those, I think they're great films, and they work exactly for how they're structured. So yeah, maybe there'll be more that take place in one day after Moments of Youth. But even if there's not, I think that they're great no matter how long they're being told over, because they're really good stories. I think Perks of Being a Wallflower is a wonderful movie and a wonderful story, and I think Booksmart was just fantastic, and it takes place in one night. I think if the structure works for one day, it's great. But I think, I think that showing the progression over a long, say, maybe like a semester of school, American Pie kind of really only I'd have to like ask the guys themselves, like how long they think it, but what I gather is probably takes place over 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks is with the whole, right?
Yeah, like very close to prom. So yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah. You kind of feel the end of the year coming.
Yeah.
Graduation's right around the corner. Prom is obviously all building towards prom. The whole plot is building towards prom. So yeah, I think that's really, that's another great option, which is like a week or two is really cool. But yeah, I think whatever works structurally for the story is great. I think because of the fact that the scavenger hunt drives the whole story, this movie had to take place in one day. Because I think if you were to build it towards it, you would be doing, it would be a whole different movie. It'd probably be, it'd be a cool story, but I don't think you could feature the scavenger hunt as much if you told, say, 2 weeks of school before that, right? Because you wouldn't be able to do so many, scavenger hunt related tasks,
right?
Because you only have a finite amount of time to tell the whole story. So yeah, I think for us it was structurally what made 100% the most sense. Dazed and Confused also is one day, which is, fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's the last day of the school year, but it's told from, a couple different age groups, right? Which is really cool too. So, also a really cool option.
Last one before we go here. What's next for you, Gregory? What do you want to do next?
Yeah. So, and tell you guys something next about Moments of Youth, which is kind of a really cool announcement. The first part I actually just released, which is that we are officially, given the success of the film digitally, we're actually getting a theatrical release.
Wow!
Congrats!
Yeah, thank you. We had 2 screenings already in Oregon. Which is, I don't know if you guys know this, but Oregon is pronounced Oregon.
Oregon.
Did you know that?
No.
Oregon. I'm so glad because you guys are from here. You never heard it. When we did all this, everyone was telling me like I should have known that, and apparently that's how it's said. So I'm thrilled that you guys also didn't know that. I didn't expect you to. So we did it. Yeah, we did 2 screenings. With a virtual Q&A afterwards with me and several of the cast members. John Farley was on. We're going to release that pretty soon. But, we have 2 screenings in Boston, end of August, which I'm going to go to and do a Q&A there as well. We just announced that. But the really, another really exciting one that I haven't, announced yet, I will, by the time we film this, I will have put it out there, but you guys will be the first podcast that finds out. The Alex Theater in LA, which is a historic theater, just reopened to show films. It shows, it does a lot of concerts. Seats 1,300 people. They just reopened it to show the Odyssey on 70 millimeter. So they're showing a ton of Odyssey screenings, and then there might be a couple other films in the middle, but they're showing our film September 10th.
Wow, that's awesome.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm incredibly proud of that. It's 1,300 seats that it holds. Going to do a virtual Q&A. If my schedule allows me, I'm going to try to fly out for it. But
Yeah.
if not, then I'm doing a virtual Q&A for sure. And then we're in talks with about 20 other theaters around the country, and now also several internationally. So, I'm incredibly proud, of that. A lot of films don't get theatrical releases. A lot of very few independent films do. So, I'm incredibly honored by all that. And, the team at the Alex Theater, and the team at the Embassy Theater in Boston have been just incredibly lovely towards us. The Alex Theater just loved our story. I mean, they loved the film story, but they loved our story in terms of, being an independent film and having the success we have with the 40 awards and everything at the festivals and everything that we've done. And they really wanted to be part of it. So, and then as far as what's next for me this is something totally unexpected, but we made a hidden camera game show like 15 years ago, and I optioned the rights 3 or 4 times over the years. It never aired. The rights reverted back to me during COVID, and kind of like during the lockdown, I got the idea, just as a way to give people something to laugh at. I released one of the episodes on our YouTube channel. That was the last I've really worked on it or thought about it. We're talking, that's a 2020. Anyway, so as I was, right after I had kind of signed the acquisition deal with Buffalo 8 for Moments of Youth, we kind of started the marketing push pretty early on, and I got connected with a gentleman who was going to help market the film, and he told me that his name's Adam Ward, and he has a company, and he told me that he was going to, not that he was going to, but he had already started a new distribution company. So he had asked if I had anything other than Moments of Youth that was filmed, and I told him. I told him that, I made this show called Everyone Has Their Price. That's the logo back there. Years ago. I told him about the concept, and he really liked it. I sent it to him, and they came on board to help, to basically to option the show. Anyway, so over the course of the next couple months, we talked here and there about, how it was going in terms of shopping it. So we reached a deal with a streaming platform to air it. And, so that kind of came out of nowhere. So this last couple of weeks, on top of marketing the film, I've been preparing the episodes to be formatted for television. Not having edited it in years, we went back and did a whole ton of new stuff. We added some animation and a lot of really fun graphics, and it came out great. Really, really excited for it to be out there. It's like, basically the premise is like, the game that everybody plays. Would you do this if you got paid? Right? Like, we play it all the time with our friends. So we took it a step further, and it was not only that, but it was who was willing to do it for the cheapest.
That's good.
Yeah. So we had like, one of the things was, guy had to go into a restaurant, only order water for 2 hours straight, no matter what happened.
That's tough.
One guy had to go into a pet shop and go fishing in the fish tank. Another guy had to go into a mattress store with a blow up doll and pretend it was his girlfriend, and he was trying out different mattresses.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So that, that's where it's at. It's, probably a couple of months it'll be out there. So I'm very excited about that. On top of that, we're getting ready to put the put together the next film, which I believe is going to be called The Final Score. It's about a star hockey player who gets injured, but he was always secretly a really great musician, which Dixon, I see the guitars in the background, and
if you need somebody for the lead, you know who to call. I might have to work on my skating a little bit, but the guitar I think I got.
Yeah, nice. What you play? Looks like you play electric.
Yeah, I have acoustic too, but I mostly
You have acoustic too.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's your favorite band or bands?
Oh my God, you put me on the spot again. I
said
go
you
back
love
and forth.
Oasis too, right?
Yeah,
so.
definitely Oasis. I mean,
Okay.
more of like a classic rock, so I go between like
Me too.
Floyd, Zeppelin,
The Who,
Green Day.
my other favorite band other than Oasis. Yeah.
Oh my God, all those bands are huge influences.
That's all my favorites too. The classic rock stuff and the '90s, classic, Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots,
Nirvana,
which is a Nirvana, which is apparently on classic radio now. I recently,
when Green Day first came on classic rock radio, that hit me. That hurt the heart a little bit.
I know. I remember I remember the day Dookie came out. I was in like fifth grade. Well, it was the same year as definitely as What's the Story, Morning Glory, I think, or within a couple months of each other.
Yeah.
Green Day on classic rock. That's
crazy.
Wild. But yeah, all the stuff from the '60s and '70s, I love too. Yeah, the Beatles, of course. All those guys. So very cool. Anyway, so it's about his progression from athlete to musician. And there's a love story in it too. It's a very, very, very uplifting kind of film. So it looks like that's going to be the next film. Then there's another 12 behind it. Horrible, WHORRIBLE, is about a woman who, long series of events, she finds herself owing a debt to a woman who runs an escort service. So in order to pay off the debt, the madam has her work for her, but she sucks at it. So horrible. So there's that. Then there's, like I said, there's a whole bunch of other films. Now, the other thing we're going to be getting into is scripted TV. And we have 2 pilots that we're getting ready to get off the ground. One's called Every Day's a Holiday. Every episode takes place on a different national day on the calendar. You see on social media every day, you see like, oh, today is National
Pie Day, or yeah.
Right. So every episode's a different one of those. And it's kind of told in a small town.
That's fun.
And centered around a company that, just a startup company that formed like a really sophisticated scheduling app. So they release all the national days on the
I had that idea like 3 years ago. I was like, we need to know, because every day it was like, well, it's burrito day, but it's also balloon day. I was like, we need one for every day. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them. Every day has like 6 or 7, like, so each episode we feature predominantly one, but we talk about like two or the other ones, or whatever. We mention them all. So they're all integrated in the app. When you look in the app tells you, and then kind of they get the idea to build it into social media and have people, posting whatever the national day is, and like little like things online. And it's all about the startup then kind of takes off, based on the social media component.
Very cool.
The other pilot is called Midnight on Broadway. It takes place in the late night talk show world. Basically the pilot episode reveals that the host, who's a really he's got kind of an issue with bright lights and stuff. He's got a head something issue with his clearly with his brain. We don't know what that is. Anyway, so the end of the episode, we reveal that there was a actually, this is kind of a spoiler. So
I was gonna say,
I will just say it takes place in the late night talk show world and also the spy world at the same time.
Great title.
Yeah, thank you. That's the name of the show that he hosts, and also something that happens I was about to say the complete spoiler or whatever. But yeah, that's the title. So yeah, a lot of different things that we're working on. Also, I'm regularly, I'm always writing and rewriting my own stuff. But I also am often brought on to rewrite screenplays that are going into production,
Mhm.
or adapt novel. Currently adapting a novel. It's the third time I've done that, so I'm rewriting that. Or they had a draft of the screenplay originally, but I'm kind of rewriting the entire script from a film standpoint as opposed to the way that the novel is. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff on the horizon. So um, I'll come back and tell you guys all about it.
Yeah, you're a friend of the pod now, so you're always
Absolutely.
welcome back for more
Yeah.
chats.
Absolutely, sounds
Well,
great.
the film is Moments of Youth. You mentioned the screenings, but where can we watch it digitally for people that are listening?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. First of all, guys, it's been awesome being on here. Thanks so much. Okay, so in the US, it is available on Fandango. It's available on Amazon. It is available on Verizon Fios, Hoopla, most cable, including Spectrum, Charter, Cox, Xfinity, Optimum. It's available on Tubi. Also in the UK, you can watch it on Amazon, and also Canada and Australia, you can watch it on Tubi. But worldwide, the whole rest of the world, it's available on Plex and also on the Buffalo 8 YouTube channel.
Very cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
Well, I want to tell all our listeners, please check it out. We love film. We want to support all films, not just big ones, all types, and go check out a movie that you don't really see as much anymore. So loved having you here, Gregory. This was
Oh,
great. Great.
Love being here, guys. Thanks so much. It was awesome talking with you. Thanks so much for having me on. And thanks for
Yeah.
the support of the movie. I really appreciate it. Our whole team really appreciates it, giving me the platform to talk about it.
Yeah. This has been super fun. And like we said, welcome back anytime.
Thanks. I will absolutely come back.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Thanks.
We'll talk soon. Bye. And for us, the scavenger hunt is now complete. We're going to dish out the winnings and get to closing arguments.
The winner is...
All right. So, as usual on our podcast, we always open with first experiences and we always close with closing arguments. Although I don't know if we're going to be arguing today. Positive feelings, good vibes. Like we said, American Pie here. But, Dixon, as usual, we always ask, do you like this movie?
I do like this movie. I think I liked this movie when I first watched it, and I liked it even more after having this conversation with Greg. I think, diving into the story and the, ideas behind how everything kind of came together from, a writer and director's perspective just gives you so much more of an understanding of the movie itself and what he was going for. And it just made me appreciate it and enjoy it even more, even after having watched it 2 times. And now I feel like I need to go back and watch it a 3rd time just to kind of dive into all the little nuanced things that I didn't realize before we had this conversation with him. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun watching this movie and talking to Greg about it. So yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had a great time with it. I don't want to repeat myself about American Pie and these callback movies that he was speaking about us with, but it just felt like how I used to feel when I watched certain movies, and I don't want to get too heavy in terms of the gun violence stuff that we spoke about already, but I thought it was important that he did weave that in because it was integral to the plot. It gave them all the motivation, and it's just a reality of what the youth deals with these days. The youth, as I age myself up. So yeah, I'm glad it's getting love, and we're talking about it, and I encourage our viewers just to check it out. And yeah, I want to see more from Greg. And that's my next question. Little what if scenario here. What would you like to see Gregory do with a big budget? Let's say he goes full Curry Barker. His next one's a big hit, or Moments of Youth, huge hit. What would you like to see him get or do?
Do you know what would be interesting? Almost in the same sort of vein of this movie, how it takes place within one day and like one sort of event going on throughout that day. It'd be kind of cool to see a day in the life of making a TV show from the perspective, maybe a TV show or a movie, but from the perspective of somebody behind the scenes. And we kind of stick with them throughout the whole day. But we also get to see sort of how there's the heavier sort of concepts in Moments of Youth. Maybe there's something going on with the character that we follow, and there's, a little bit more gravity to what he's doing within the movie or the show or whatever they're filming. But to kind of see that from the perspective of somebody who's not the big movie star or the, big name director or something like that, just kind of more ground level, but on a bigger sort of stage to say. I think that'd be kind of cool to see his take and his perspective on that.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, I would love to see something like almost like Judd Apatow level of like comedy. That would be fun. Or just really harken back to more like screwball nature. That'd be cool too. But
yeah,
I think that this film really does a lot well. The ensemble, the structure, the energy. Principal Crenshaw, John Farley's character, like we said, genuine standout. The Papadopoulos family, awesome. The Burton sequence, and then the Freddy thread tying it all together. Very strong first feature for Gregory. So happy to talk about it. All right, that is a wrap on Moments of Youth. Again, the film is available digitally, so please check it out. And the hits keep on coming on our pod. So next week, we'll have Christopher Nolan, our second director, on the podcast. No, I'm kidding.
My God, Gabe. I was going to say, you're going to drop that on me now? What
We're doing all directors, No, so
we had to get somebody who wasn't too busy.
We have a lot of fun stuff coming for August, despite the dog days of summer. And then we'll have a red hot September with Resident Evil, Digger, and The Social Reckoning. So come back next week and see what we got cooking. Because as always, the movie may be over, but the marathon always continues. Peace.
Peace.